Hello and welcome to the CBB Super Show brought to you by the FTN Network. I am your host, Walter Waddell, aka Dub Deuce 85, that niche sports connoisseur. We are live after the Sweet 16, day one of Sweet 16. We are now down to 12 teams. Wouldn't you know it? Some excitement here. Couldn't go live in the middle of that Texas Tech game. Had to see it through to the very end. Awesome basketball game there. Friday, that is what we're going to talk about. The next 4 games on tap, and 4 more teams will get into the Elite Eight. 16 has become 12. 12 will become 8. 8 will become 4. 4 becomes 2. And then we will crown a national champion. You guys know the drill. If you are watching live here, I appreciate you. Please make sure you hit that like button over on YouTube. It helps a tremendous amount. If you're watching on X/Twitter, shares and reposts help there as well. And of course, interactions, comments, questions, concerns, all of it helps us a tremendous amount. And I am in your gratitude. And I do appreciate this because you guys continue to support the show in droves. It doesn't matter if we're on in the morning, night, the afternoon, Monday, Saturday, Sunday, it does not matter. You guys continue to support the Super Show, and I have no problem continuing to pump out these shows for you guys. Hopefully you had a profitable night, found those green screens and those window trips. It's some mixed results with the props, but we did fight our asses off in the DFS realm. Got through in the $160 Survivor, thankfully. Christian Anderson with the just smash second half and overtime. Thank you, Christian. You are the man. Got my man Johnny popping in here. Says the Maryland brass is pissed. Apparently Willard is taking the Nova job. Yeah, man. That had been rumored for like a few days now. So much so that on the the seeing them off party, whatever that Maryland fans did, they were booing Willard on his way out. And man, he did not look really that engaged. They kept panning over, especially when Maryland fell behind there as it like mid-second half. You're just sitting on the bench, kind of staring off into space. Not a great look there for Willard, taking the Villanova job over Maryland. Very interesting. And Johnny says, roll Tide. Yeah, man, what a game. BYU, the offensive explosion, we said the over 175.5 was live, even though it went up 2 points from the open. It was very, very obvious. 1,000,000 3-pointers. Mark Sears, Slate breaker extraordinaire. What a game for Mark Sears. Aiden Holloway. Aiden Holloway was hot. That was a great performance. And you know what? They didn't even get that good of a game from Grant Nelson, which they're going to really need there in the Elite Eight, which they will be lining up for against the Duke Blue Devils, which is going to be a one hell of a matchup. Cooper Flagg, we said he's going to play a lot of minutes here against Arizona. Kudos to Arizona. They put it on them. That plus 9.5 for Arizona, we gave that out last night. Loved it. Thought that was way too many points. Some late free throws there by Duke. Tried to put it, give us a little bit of sweat, but Arizona plus 9.5 does get through. That Arizona team has nothing to hang their head about. Caleb Love with a monstrous 30-point performance. Fouls really just kind of ruined that game. KJ Lewis was out of it because of fouls. Patrick Mbongwa was in foul trouble the whole game, although you saw he put up some pretty nice stats there in the minutes he did play, especially in the second half. That dude's going to be a stud next year. And Zion James finally had a nice performance where he semi-broke out. So Duke versus Alabama. That side is set. Florida takes care of business, smacks Maryland around. Texas Tech escapes in overtime. Arkansas just a very large implosion there. So Florida versus Tech. Duke versus Bama. We will set the rest of the field here. We have a 4-game slate. We are going to get into it here. Calipari blew a 16-point lead in a Sweet 16 game. Another Calipari choke. Yeah, second largest comeback in Sweet 16 history, I believe. Pretty sure I heard that as the game was ending. So pretty wild there. All right, if you're new to the show, what we do here, tried and true, we go game by game breakdowns, giving our thoughts on each of the matchups from a DFS and betting perspective. We'll give a 3-man core at the end and answer any and all questions throughout. And of course, on demand, I do circle back around there as well. And a lot of you guys have been DMing me chopping it up with me. Lots of great community building there, which I appreciate, and a lot of new subs as well, which has been great. We didn't hit on the Walter Clayton legacy game that we were banking on. He was very low owned, like sub 30%. Still put up about a 250 today. That's how high scoring the slate was. Just think about if he did put up a big score. But Florida was such a balanced attack there. Clayton didn't even really have to have the game because Maryland was never in it. When Florida is in a close game here, which Texas Tech can give them a close game, sure. But whenever that happens, we're going to want to be all over Walter Clayton. Trust me when I say this huge explosion game is going to happen for him. Impressive effort by Florida. And Alex Condon got hurt once again. Looked like he was going to be done for the game, but then he did come back and play there. So Florida looks like the real deal. All right, let's get into this four-gamer here. Lots of contests up, lots of juicy stuff to look at. 20K to first at the $20 level. That was 25K to first today. I don't know why they dropped it down, but whatever. 2K to first, $5. There is, of course, the 2K to first, $44. And then the 160 survivor into round 2 there, half the field out. Got to make it one more round in that to actually cash out and make something. And then the 222 100 man this time is a 5K to first. So I don't know if there was there was a little bit of overlay today, but I don't know if there's enough for them to drop all those prize pools like that. But whatever, it's still good money. Let's get into it. Game number 1, Ole Miss versus Michigan State. Hey, Ole Miss, don't sleep on Ole Miss. The Rebels, they did a nice job smacking North Carolina around. They got my man Malik Dia. But they're facing the Spartans team that's just as deep as Florida. That could be a potential matchup down the road, Michigan State and Florida. That'd be a fun one. Michigan State is a 3.5-point favorite here, total of 143.5. Let's pull up my projections here. Get my team view once again. You guys like that, so we're going to rock the team view. Makes it real easy to look at, honestly. Here we go. Dun, 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 dun. Let's do that. And let's do. There we are. Johnny, yeah, 18-1 on Florida. That, yeah, feel smart. That's definitely a great bet that you got a few months back. All in on Florida at this point. Love it. All in on the mocks too, man. How about the mocks? Plus 450 on William Hill to win the NIT. The mocks are going to win the NIT. Even if they don't, that's just great value on them. So I was putting that in the Discord earlier when I saw that. But my mocks, we've been riding with them throughout the NIT so far and getting some really good value there at plus 450. We're on it. All right, so we got Ole Miss here. We got some really cheap prices on Ole Miss once again and some fairly cheap prices on Michigan State as well. And this is where we're going to want to target our value pieces. When you look at the Ole Miss side, you've got Dre Davis, who sticks out like a sore thumb there at 4.6. We know he's got some real DFS viability. We have used him throughout the season. Anytime he's in the 5.5, 6K range even. So when you're talking about a 4.6 price point, I am very, very interested. Yes, the matchup against the Spartans is spotty, and they had some really good performances defensively against New Mexico. But Dre Davis is going to be a player that I think does give them a little bit of trouble here. And when we dig into the New Mexico game, let me pull that up real quick. A player with a similar skill set to Dre Davis gave them a lot of issues, especially in the first half, and that was Mustafa Onzo. Similar frame, does a lot of the same things. He did have 14 points, 4 rebounds, and a steal in that one. Not as effective in the second half, but he really gave them issues in the first half, and he doesn't really have to do a ton at this price point. We typically, at this time of year, we're playing the Patrick Mbangwa. Shout out to him. He was good today in his limited minutes. Dallin Hall, some of these kind of spotty values. Dre Davis is not a spotty value. This is a dude that, at Seton Hall a year or two ago, we were playing him confidently at 7K, 8K. So I'm all over him at 4.6. I think the industry will be too. Name value, you can see we have him projected pretty high at 4.5x. Hell, all he got to do is give us 20 fantasy points, and I think he's going to do more than that as well. Minutes should be safe. This is a deeper Ole Miss team for sure, and Chris Beard's rotations are definitely frustrating at times. especially when it comes to Malik Dia. But when we look back and see Davis 28 minutes, 28, 30, pretty consistent there. And he scored 20 or more fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 against Arkansas, who was really just nails the last month of the season. They did lose today, but their defense has been great. Auburn, we know the deal on them. UNC, and of course, Iowa State. It's Ole Miss team, not to be trifled with. Now, he wasn't great against Iowa State. He had just 4 points, did foul out in the 28 minutes, but he did contribute a block, a couple of assists, 5 rebounds. Look for him to be a little bit more involved scoring-wise like he was against Auburn and North Carolina. So at 4-6, Dre Davis is going to be our guy. We get some price reductions across the board on others, not on Sean Padula because he put up that 43 against Iowa State. I am not going to be chasing the Padula game there. I actually am very happy if others do. He's going to take a ton of shots here, but the Spartans defense, man, they really showed me something, and they bothered Donovan Dent so very much. Dent had a lot better second half, like he had to. He was taking shots, but they held him to 7 of 18 shooting. Did have 6 assists, but 4 turnovers. Just in the first half, he was very much a non-factor and did a lot of his scoring late in the game. When it started to slip away there. Same with True Washington. He had just 8 points, 3 rebounds, was a non-factor in the first half. They did a nice job shutting down the top 2 guards for New Mexico. So that makes me concerned for Sean Padula. And that's why you can look at and see he's not projecting very well there at 8-2, all the way down to nearly 3.5x. Not so sure we're going to get him above 30 too often against the Spartans defense. Also leery about Matthew Morrell at 5'4". I'm glad he's been priced up a little bit. He always projects super well when he's super cheap because we know long-term he's been a pretty solid performer, and his rates aren't that bad, but he's just not a consistent DFS performer that much, although he has put up 22 plus in 3 of his last 4, which includes 25 against Iowa State and 24 against North Carolina. And that is why we've seen this slight price bump here, especially recently. But again, another one that I don't think has the biggest success here against the Spartan. I feel like him and Padula struggle like True Washington and Donovan Dent did. So leaning to Dre Davis there. We also have Jalen Murray, but his price is up to 5.7. He's been pretty solid because of his high steal rate, and he's been racking them up, and he can get hot from long range as well. He's a volatile player, though, and I'm not so sure paying almost $6K for him is going to be in the cards for me, especially when I look at this slate. I have a real specific way I want to build. Today's slate, we were very heavy on the early games. Tomorrow's slate, we're going to be very heavy on the later games. So it really just leaves me with my main team exposure to Dre Davis. And then, of course, I got to get some alt GBP exposure to Malik Dia. He's priced at 7.2. Expect him to be very low owned. Man, the upside is it's gratuitous. It's so high, and it's just so frustrating that Chris Beard uses him in such an illogical manner. Dropping my thesaurus on you tonight, Johnny. He was fantastic in the first half against Iowa State. Inexplicably didn't play hardly at all in the second. And that's been the main issue there. And he could have dropped an atomic bomb on North Carolina too, but he played just 18 minutes there. So it's hard to trust Dia. You look at the Arkansas and Auburn games prior to the tournament in the SEC tournament, he played 30 and 32 minutes, and he just erupted in both of those. If I knew for sure with any definity that I would get 32 minutes out of Malik Dia, I don't care about the price, the matchup, anything. He is just so good. This dude is a really good basketball player. I don't know if there's going to come out that he has a conditioning issue. Like, I don't know why the beats on Ole Miss don't come out and ask Chris Beard. Like, I haven't seen every Ole Miss presser by any means. I've seen the last couple, and I don't know why he doesn't get asked, like, what's the deal with Malik Dia and why do you use him like that? So it's very frustrating, but he's definitely a high-level GBP look. This Ole Miss team doesn't have a ton of chemistry still. It's painfully obvious when you watch the Iowa State game, especially between Jamin Brakefield and Malik Dia. And that might be part of the problem, is that they just can't share the floor as much. And Brakefield's been rock solid as well. And he's priced at only 5K. I think we'll see some ownership there on Brakefield. I'm not going to be going there in my main. I think there's some potential foul trouble issues there, but he is very cheap. And you see at 26 minutes, he does project over 4.2x. Him and Dre Davis being your top 2 looks on the Rebels. But Dre Davis, definitely going to be a main team keeper for us. On the Spartan side, I'm going to be really high on the Spartans values. I got away with using Trey Holloman late. Last Spartan slate, I had to make some swaps because of some early mistakes. And Holloman had a really, really big game. The main thing keeping me away from Trey Holloman isn't anything to do with this matchup whatsoever, but it's just because of the deep rotation that the Spartans employ. And Holloman doesn't, he comes off a bench a lot early in the second half, and then they use him in crunch time. So his minutes tend to be capped in that mid-20s range. He is still cheap enough at 5.5 to consider, but that upside just isn't really there. Now, he has scored 24 and 30 in each of their 2 tournament games, so he is doing more, taking a lot of threes. He's 6 of 10 right now in the 2 games from long range, and he's got 8 assists to 0 turnovers. Great assist to turnover ratio there. Trey Holloman is a fantastic player and somebody that, quite frankly, I'd love to see play more minutes. I do think the 3 steals he had against New Mexico weren't a blip. We haven't seen him really do that all that often. But going up against this Ole Miss team that does have a propensity to turn the ball over, especially on the perimeter, I think Holloman has a chance. So he's definitely in play. Kind of falls in that last man in category, right? When you have like 5'8", 5'6" left in your lineup, you like everything else. Trey Holloman's definitely a solid last man in. Would love to go back to Jace Richardson as a GPP look. Definitely, I think people will be gun shy to go there. He shot 1 of 10 from the field, and they still beat New Mexico. That's got to tell you all you need to know about the Spartans. And he put up a 21 fantasy point game, despite the fact that he made 1 field goal. The last 90 seconds of that game, he was a star once again, and Izzo trusted him. Big difference between him and Patino, right? He had an assist, a block, a steal, 4 free throws. He was just all over the place that last 90 seconds, and a key reason why they were able to hold off a very gritty, tough New Mexico team. So he is priced down slightly from that 7-1 price, and he's been almost 8K here for a month. So you're getting a discounted price at 6.9. He's a great GBP look. Jaden Akins shot extremely well last game, but still shooting extremely well for Akins doesn't necessarily mean anything from a fantasy perspective. He shot 7-11 and scored 16 real, but he finished with actually the same amount of fantasy points as Jace Richardson, despite the fact that he was much more effective offensively. And that just reminds everybody that Akins isn't going to give you a lot from a peripheral standpoint. And everybody waiting the last 2 years for Akins to make that ascension as the next, top stud for the Spartans as an upperclassman, and it hasn't really happened, and they haven't needed him to either. He's very good as a scoring option, not a game changer necessarily, but he can hit some big shots. But at 6'4", I'm just not interested at all. And then Jackson Keeler, they have a lot of big men that they're going to throw out there. Keeler gets the starts, but you see his minutes have been under 20 in 3 straight. And that is because the reemergence, he's reemerged once, then he was barely used again. Now he's reemerged. Cohen Carr and Carson Cooper has played extremely well. Basically, Cooper and Carr have played so well, they have had to be on the floor. Izzo can't keep them off the floor, and that's cost Keeler minutes and Saman Zappala. Both of them have seen a minutes reduction. And then Xavier Booker's just not playing at all. So Cohen Carr's there at 4-1, just kind of almost a no-brainer play. 4 straight games, he's played 23 or more minutes, 18 plus fantasy points, and 3 of those 4 at 4-1. Like, just, it's an easy click. He's going to be super highly owned as well, so it's no secret there. You could have a little bit of leverage if you want to zag over to Carson Cooper, who will be far less owned. But if you look through what Cooper's done against Wisconsin, especially 8 points, 10 rebounds in 28 minutes. He's played 17 minutes in both of their tournament games here, but he still put up a 16 and a 15. So he's performing very well on a per minute basis. I don't know if I like the idea of playing Cooper with Carr together, but in a GBP sense, I do think you can do so. And just think of it as combine their 2 salaries, hope you get the 4X with them combined, and I think you definitely can. And if there's foul trouble on any of the other big men, we will see Cooper's minutes spike like they did against Wisconsin. So definitely on board there. And you can see with the projection screen, Cohen Carr very high, 4.3x. Cooper's there at 4x as well. Then we get into the value guards, Jeremy Fears, who does start, and Frankie Fiddler. Jeremy Fears at 4.9. He is an excellent option as well. If I am going to play 2 Spartans players, it would be Fears and Carr together. Fears looked outstanding. Defensively, man, he was absolute nails. It doesn't always translate into the box score, and that's what we need when we're talking about DFS stuff. But as far as real life basketball goes, man, Jeremy Fears is a dude. Like, I could see him make the league on the merits of his defense and ball handling alone. Only took 2 shots, but he got to the foul line 8 times, made 5 of them. Put up 15, respectable. We definitely want to see more. He has put up 20 or more fantasy points in 4 of his last 5, so definitely capable. 5 of his last 6. And the minutes have been ramping up. So he's knocking on the door of 30. And if Ole Miss can keep this close for any extended period of time, barring foul trouble, which has been a bit of an issue, 8 fouls in the past 3 games for Fears, he should play close to 30 minutes. So definitely on board there. Now let's talk about Frankie Fiddler, who's there at 3-3. I do not want to get caught chasing Frankie Fiddler. I think some will do so. As far as pay-ups go on this slate, we don't have a Cooper Flagg, JT Toppin. We do have Janai Broom. We'll get into him in a second. We have Trey Kaufman, Rennan, Braden Smith. You've got the Michigan boys, Zakai Zeigler. Like, you've got some dudes to pay for, but it doesn't have that same zip outside of Broom. And right now I'm a little bit leery of Broom, right? So we don't necessarily have to go down here and snag Frankie Fiddler, but I have been noticing a trend with him. They're using him more in the second half, crunch time situations. He was very good offensively against New Mexico. He had some key shots, stopped some very crucial New Mexico runs when they needed a bucket and Jace Richardson couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. Fiddler was breaking down his individual defender and hitting jumpers, mid-range jumpers, which I know in today's basketball, modern basketball, mid-range 2s are not the way, but hey, it worked for him. It worked for Michigan State. 17 minutes in each of their tournament games. He's put up 13 or more fantasy points in each of those as well. Near min price. Don't mind him as a GPP punt. That's at least going to get 15 minutes, maybe more. And you see where we have him projected. We put about 16 minutes on him, 15 minutes, and it does put him right over 4x. So salary savings there, definitely on board. But Jeremy Fears and Cohen Carr, if I can only play one Spartan, you're not comfortable playing multiple because of the deep rotation, I get it. Cohen Carr is going to be my guy. And I think he'll be everyone's guy. So looks like Johnny agrees there. He's calling a Carr goes nuts game. So like hearing that for sure. All right, let's move on to Kentucky and Tennessee. The SEC teams are starting to drop out a little bit here. Inevitably, they can't all go to the next round, right? This game here is a total of 144.5. The Vols are a 4.5-point favorite. Kentucky has beaten the Vols twice already. We know it's hard to beat a team 3 times. I do think things stop here for Kentucky, but man, there's some added pressure here. Kentucky fans, their base, the media, they'll say Arkansas's performance has no bearing whatsoever on how we do. We've had a great season, even if we would have lost in the first round. And that's technically true. But there's no way in hell I believe the good folks of Lexington didn't just see what happened to Arkansas and have a little bit more pep in their step. And there's just a little bit more pressure, maybe unspoken pressure, for Kentucky to win this game and make it just one round further than Cinderella Calipari. So that added pressure can make things tough. I think Kentucky might play a little tight here, even though they don't need to. And like I said, it's just really tough to play a team 3 times in one season and beat them. I think the Vols will be ready here. With the Kentucky side, I'll give the flowers to Lamont Butler. He had not looked right for months. We've been saying it every single show, every single slate. We mostly just stayed away from him. There were games where he couldn't play the second half, and he was basically like a decoy out there. Those that went Butler route against Illinois were rewarded. He played 33 minutes, 14 points, 5 assists, 3 steals. He put up a 30, and he absolutely locked down Will Riley. He caused a million turnovers for Kasparis, Jakushionis. It was a bloodbath for Illinois. Illinois did make it a respectable score, but they were never really in contention. It was an ugly turnover fest for Illinois. And Lamont Butler's defense, we know it's elite. He's there at 6K now. I'm not going to get there, but he is, to me, the most playable Kentucky option there in the mid-range. You are getting a slight discount on Otega Awe at 7.8. I think he's an elite GBP play. Probably not going to get there in my main, but we know he's got a high usage rate, high shot rate. And then you've got that second tier of guys, Andrew Carr, Amari Williams. Both are priced appropriately, so you're not getting a ton of value there. And then even Kobe Brea, he's up to 7.4. I do want to say Brea never projects well now that Butler's back and some of these other guys. And his price keeps going up. And the reason is he keeps producing. So even though the model doesn't like him very much, it is worth being aware that he is shooting a ton of shots and making a ton of shots. And he's rebounding at a high level, one of the best of his career. So he's still paying this price off. But God, there's just no way I'm feeling comfortable paying 7.4. But if you're one of those folks that are out there playing the mini max or running 10, 20, 30, 40 plus lineups, yeah, you would be a fool not to have some Kobe Brea out there. But in a single entry situation, no, thank you. And you can look at the projections here for Kentucky outside of Butler and Awe, who are right around 3.8x. Not a lot to be excited about. I do like Andrew Carr normally. Fouls can get in the way here, and I'm not too sure about how he's going to perform here against Tennessee. Let's go into this. Before we get to the Tennessee side, let's go into these prior performances here and kind of poke around a little bit, shall we? February 11th, a home game for Kentucky, which resulted in a 75-64 win over Tennessee at the Rupp. Zakai Zeigler had 17.6 assists. Felix Okpara, 8 points, 4 rebounds. Igor Milicic had a great game, 16-9. Where's that Igor been? And Chaz Lanier shut down 10 points, 6 rebounds. Jordan Gainey had 8, 5, and 3. Kobe Brea had 11. Ortega had 13 and 6. It wasn't the best game for him. Ainsley Almanor was still starting there. Carr was just getting back, I believe. He had 13, and then Trent Noah off the bench had 11. Amari Williams was in foul trouble the entire game, and Lamont Butler was still in the midst of his, trying to find his way back from injury. Kentucky gutted that one out, and they got a big performance from Trent Noah off the bench. Travis Perry, like a lot of their freshmen gave them big minutes. And that was one of the big reasons why they ended up beating Tennessee, honestly. Then we go into the road game, which took place at Thompson-Boling Arena there in Tennessee. It was a 78-73 victory for Kentucky. They still had Jackson Robinson then on January 28th. He scored 17. Kobe Brea had 18 due to making a bunch of threes, and Ainsley Almanor was raining threes as well, 4 of 7. So Kentucky was just red hot. They made 12 of 24 from long range in that one, and that was the primary reason they were able to do some damage. And Amari Williams was good in that game with 15 rebounds. Tennessee side, Igor Milicic, he had 19-9. So both games against Kentucky this year, Milicic had been a beast, something to be aware of. Zakai Zeigler, not as great, 13.6 assists, but he was out there a lot. Chaz Lanier had 15, made 3 3-pointers, but he took 10, a lot of volume there. And then Darlinson Dubar had a pretty nice game off the bench, played almost 20 minutes, 7 points, 4 rebounds. So the common theme here, Kentucky 3-point shooting against the Vols in those 2 games, but Igor Milicic absolutely owning Kentucky. I don't know, man. I don't know. Can we really trust some Igor Milicic here? He's still really cheap at 5.2, right? The minutes have really gone stagnant. He did play 25 against UCLA and was better, and he looked much better. But the Wofford game, man, he was a killer against Wofford. He barely played in the second half against Florida. Like, I just don't know if we can trust Igor, but he had some of his best games of the season against Kentucky. 38.5 against Kentucky in that last game. And then their first meeting, let me go here. 38.5 and then 33.5. Pretty big performances. If he did that at 5.2, certainly would be on the optimal. But do we have trust in Igor Milicic? I don't think so. That's going to be a tough one, and I'm curious to see what his ownership may end up being. If he were projected to be pretty highly owned, and we'll do our rounds in the morning to kind of get a sense of that, that would make Felix Okpara somewhat interesting at 5.6, although I'm not really looking at him either. If I'm going any Tennessee guys, and I'm not sure I am, which technically violates one of my rules where, there's those 4 teams when they're on the slate I like to target against. Kentucky is definitely one of them. But the Vols just aren't the juiciest team from a DFS perspective. And I feel like this one's going to be a bit more of a slog than the previous two. If I'm going to use anybody, I really like Jordan Gainey. He much like Walter Clayton, I'm waiting for this explosion game. We did see it in the SEC tournament against Florida. They did lose that game, but Gainey put up 24 on 7 of 15 shooting. He was fantastic there. He is pricey at 6'5", so I wouldn't recommend using him in a main build, but as a GPP look, Gainey is absolutely worth a shot. He played 32 minutes against UCLA. He's kind of junior in charge there under Chaz Lanier, but if Lanier gets into foul trouble or doesn't shoot well, Gainey just takes that alpha role and has no problem doing it. And there is a game brewing where both of them go off. That's a possibility as well. But love Gainey as a GPP look. I think Chaz Lanier at 8K is a bit pricey for me to get to, but clearly has that GPP upside. We saw it. Wofford, he was hot, red hot, 6 of 13 from deep, 29 real, 45 fantasy, 20 real against UCLA, 31 fantasy. So he's playing really well, but all that's done is cause his price to balloon. And then Zakai Zeigler, anytime he's under 9K, I definitely take note. He has gone up slightly since the tournament began when he was priced at 8.2. But it's a minuscule number, and when we look at the various pay-ups on the slate, and if we're not going Broom, not saying we aren't, but if we don't, we're going to have to go somewhere. Zakai Zeigler playing 38, 39 minutes at sub 9K price point. I'm certainly interested there. A floor of 30 to 32. Yeah, definitely going to have some Zeigler shares somewhere. Looking at the Tennessee projections here, Zeigler is at a 4.2x projection. Certainly interested. Igor Milicic over 4x. We'll see. Chaz Lanier and Jordan Gainey not far behind at 3.9 and 3.8. So projecting well, the Vols are. And then, of course, Jemai Meshack, who's there at 4.5. Meshack, it's a very volatile, high variance value play, but he is very cheap at 4.5 as the starter. Had some foul issues against UCLA, and he's not the offensive weapon that Lanier and Gainey are. And we have seen him cede minutes to Gainey before. That happened mostly against UCLA because of fouls. And then the Florida game, he lost minutes because Gainey was just taking over offensively when Chaz Lanier couldn't stop fouling. He does contribute rebounds, stocks, other categories besides scoring, so it makes him a somewhat interesting look. And you'll see in the projections, if he gets to about 29, 30 minutes, we're talking about him knocking on the door of 20 real fantasy points. Makes him a great play. Maybe I have him a little over-projected minutes-wise. You see in the last 4, 23, 25, 33, and 19. But I think he does settle in without fouls somewhere in that upper 20, lower 30 range. So, again, not sure if I'm going to go there. He does feel like a somewhat lean value play, but the minutes will at least be there, again, barring foul trouble. But coming out of this game, I'm perfectly fine if I end up with little to no exposure, which makes me a little uneasy because I typically like to target Kentucky games. But I'm also a bit skittish on Kentucky games because the last 2 or 3 have just been an abomination for us, especially that Illinois game. So defensively, they're starting to figure some things out. Tennessee, we already know they're good defensively. This one just has the look of a bit of a slog. With that total being 144.5, I think the under might be live. So kind of where my head's at. I like Tennessee to win outright, but I'm not laying 4.5. That's for sure. All right, let's move on to the next game here. Michigan versus Auburn. This is where we really can start gearing up for our fantasy goodness here. Auburn is currently minus 8.5. That was 9.5 not even this morning, right? Total of 153.5. This is definitely a game we're going to want some exposure to. Both sides, Auburn especially. We got to take a long, hard look, starting with Michigan here, at Roddy Gale. Priced at 4.4. He's been dealing with some, various ailments, issues. He lost his starting gig to Reuben Jones. Then he got it back. Then he was ineffective, lost it again. And then he came up huge in the game against Texas A&M. 30 minutes off the bench. Amari Burnett didn't have it, and he hasn't had it for a while. But they played Gale 30 minutes, and they played Reuben Jones 30 minutes. Both of them played a lot of the second half there. Gale with 26 real points. Hit 4 of 6 from deep, 8 of 8 at the line, 4 rebounds, an assist, and a steal. Now, I do not want to get caught chasing Michigan guards because they are extremely volatile, even more so than Jemiah Mashack, right? Some games Trey Donaldson does it, some games Nimari Burnett, some games Reuben Jones does okay, but Roddy Gale is still very, very cheap. And the way that he just absolutely assaulted Texas A&M and took over that game when they needed him to, especially with Trey Donaldson playing so rough, really has my interest. But it's just one of those classic spots where everybody jumps to Gale, jumps to this player that just wrecked shop, and he drops a 5. It is worth noting in his last 5 games, in 4 of those last 5, he has hit at least 15 DK fantasy points. 15 to 16 at this 4-4 price is exactly what we would need. Obviously would want some more. We have him projected for nearly 19. Very solid. The minutes have to be there, though. If he gets rug pulled and plays low 20s, this play will blow up in our faces very fast. And I want to be very careful because Nimari Burnett still exists, and he's priced at only 3.9, right? And his minutes were way down last game. And when I first saw that, because there's a lot going on, I watched some other games there. Thought, man, did he get an injury of some sort? Like, what was the deal there? Went back and looked through. Doesn't appear to be the case. Just was ineffective in the way that Roddy Gale was playing. So, was it like when I went back and looked, he subbed out at the 17-minute mark and just never came back. Wasn't injury related that I saw. And when I do a search on socials, all I get is a bunch of people begging Prize Picks for a reboot. So not exactly helpful in that regard. So we'll see if he ends up, anything abnormal. If Roddy Gale starts, it would certainly make it a little bit easier. I will say on these tournament slates, DK has been pretty solid about moving lock times back. So they are staying actively engaged there so we can actually get starting lineups prior to making those decisions. I was pretty locked in on Christian Anderson today regardless, but we got the news on Chance McMillan nice and early that he wasn't going to play, so it didn't matter. But had that news dragged, it was nice to have those extra minutes if we needed them. So golf clap for DK for that. So we'll see what happens. But if Gale were to jump back in the starting lineup, whether that's over Burnett or Reuben Jones, I would be pretty hard-pressed not to get at least some exposure, and he may end up being a main team play for me. But I'm waiting for him to just put up a terrible game. As far as Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden go, 8.8 and 9K, they're luxury plays on this slate. Auburn, defensively, Auburn is still nails. The game against Creighton was really interesting. That wasn't like a banger game for Creighton down low. They just got hot in the first half from 3, and it was very obvious that they weren't going to stay hot. They were shooting, 70%, and they ended up 44% for the game, which is still really good. Jackson McAndrew was knocking down 1,000,000 threes. Ashworth was doing his thing. Even Jemiah Neal was getting hot from 3. We saw Fedor Zugic play really well. It was just very obvious that once they stopped hitting those threes, they were going to be hard-pressed to in the front court because of that defense and rim protection. And it wasn't as if Ryan Kalkbrenner was down low, like bodying up with Broom and Cardwell. He did have 18 points, 7 rebounds. Like, it was a solid game for him, but a lot of those were jumpers, right? He had a 3. I think he took 4 threes in that one. 13 overall attempts. He was fine, but he wasn't banging with Auburn. And I'm just concerned here for a guy like Vlad Golden and if he gets a bad whistle. We'll see what the ref assignments are tomorrow. We have the ref pool, but we'll see where they're assigned game-wise. And I'm just concerned about this one for both sides, honestly, for front court options, which leads me into the Broom spiel I'm going to have here in a minute. Danny Wolf, a little less worried just because he plays all over the place, right? He can handle the ball. He can bang down low. He can shoot jumpers. Like, he's all over. So I'm not as concerned with him, but definitely gets into foul trouble as well. He would be the one I'd want to play. If I'm going any Michigan big, it's going to be Danny Wolf, not Vlad Golden. The versatility of Wolf, I think, is just better suited against Auburn, and maybe a similar game to what we saw from Kalkbrenner, which is not bad. He is just very high at 9K at this point. And then down there at 3.7, you have Reuben Jones, who had probably his best game of the season, honestly, in those 30 minutes, 7.7 rebounds, 4 assists. He put up 23. I'd be doing somersaults if Reuben Jones gives us 23 again. Only other thing worth noting here, LJ Kaysen, over the last, I don't know, 3-4 games, his minutes have been ramping up. He played 20 against Texas A&M, and he was very effective there. Got to the foul line 5 times, 11 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists. He's there at 3-4. He's an interesting GPP look, especially if we think Gale or Jones is going to carry ownership. Kind of zagging over to Kaysen could make some sense. Justin Pippen, in the midst of a tourney run, has decided to enter the portal, and he hasn't played since early March. Kaysen was playing over him. So it was obvious Pippen was going to leave the team, but I didn't think you'd do it in the middle of a tournament run, but he just wasn't going to play. So that does take one guard out of the pool there, and I think we see Jones, Gale, Burnett, Donaldson, and Kaysen kind of divvy up those minutes amongst each other, and it does make him somewhat interesting. All right, this is where it gets real fun. The Auburn side, we're all over Auburn here, and the projections agree. No surprise. Everybody's cheap for the most part, except for Janai Broome at 10-4, right? Chaney Johnson at 4-2. He played some crucial minutes in the second half against Creighton. I really like Chaney Johnson and the way he plays. Chad Baker-Mazara, took the shot there to the nuts, the chest, the hip, everywhere. Couldn't end up playing for, the second half, or most of the second half, I should say. And Chaney Johnson gave them really solid minutes. He's priced all the way down at 4-2. Very agreeable price there. Early, 20, 22 minutes, that's a payoff at pretty much every time. I think we get him for 20 fantasy points. There's certainly upside for more, and his versatility is going to be needed against this Michigan team. He played 25 minutes against Creighton, and he played 28 against Alabama State. So I might even have him forecasted a little bit low at 22. You push him more to 25, 26, and he's going to be, shattering even further. He has usurped 20 fantasy points in each of those tourney games. So Chaney Johnson, play number 1 for me in this Auburn game, and he's a top 2 value on the slate next to Cohen Carr pretty easily. We also have Denver Jones still under 5K as a starter, played 35 minutes. Miles Kelly was awful against Creighton. He lost a lot of minutes to guys who weren't awful, like Denver Jones, Todd Pettiford, Chaney Johnson. I think at this point, and with the run that Auburn is on and how this game's probably going to be pretty close, better seem to think so if it's down to 8.5. Denver's probably playing 32, 35 minutes, and he's not going to put up a slate-breaking score, but it's nice knowing that you've got a sub-5K option that's going to give you about 20 at worst, and possibly give you 25 or more if those threes are hitting. So he projects really well, both him and Chaney Johnson amongst the top on the slate at 4.6x, as you can see. Other cheapies like Dylan Cardwell at 4.3, probably not. I think foul trouble is probably going to fall upon him pretty hard, pretty fast. Miles Kelly is there at 5.9. He was just so bad, man. Kelly's an interesting GPP look because nobody's going to roster him. He does have upside. We've seen him splash, if you will, before, but he's just the first one that's going to lose minutes there if Pettiford has to go. But the game before that against Bama State, Kelly put up 23 real against Tennessee in the SEC tournament. He had 13 real, 24 fantasy points. So he's definitely solid at this price, but he's become a little erratic. He was just shooting very poorly there. But the volume is definitely going to be there for Miles Kelly. So it's a mistake to completely rule him out, but he's clearly not a main team look right now. That brings us to Todd Pettiford, whose price is up to 6.2. What that hopefully does is push people away. If he'd be priced at 5.1 like he was last game, he would be like 90% owned. At 6.2, people are really going to have to think about it, because what if he plays only 15 minutes? What if he only gets a 5? It's a very real possibility. If it does happen at 6.2, you're just dead to rights. There's no recovering from a 1x score at 6.2. But I don't think that's going to happen at this point. What we saw in the Creighton game was Pettiford play majority of the second half. When they needed to get a bucket, it was him. When they needed to ensure somebody got to the foul line that was capable, the ball was in his hands. He did some things defensively. He made some boneheaded mistakes. He's still a freshman. He took a few bad shots here or there, but for the most part, relentlessly attacking, getting to the foul line, 7 of 8 at the foul line, 2 of 3 from long range, 7 of 14 from the field. grab 6 rebounds. Pettiford is an elite play. He's very like a real. If Auburn were to win the title, I don't think they will, but if they would, I think Pettiford's just automatically gone to the NBA. Like he still might. This is an NBA player all the way. Selfishly, I hope he comes back for another year so we get him at a season of just destroying at 9K plus. But it's a very big decision at 6'2", and I like the spot for Pettiford. I've been using him a lot, so I don't mind going back there with him. But I admit, coming off the bench, if Kelly's hot, if Pettiford gets into foul trouble, if all the starters are doing well, like how many minutes will there be there? We know with Bruce Pearl, he's not afraid to only play him 18 to 20. But I think at this stage and what's on the line and these stakes, Pettiford just simply has to play 30-plus minutes. You can see with his rates and what I've got him projected at 31. Maybe I'm a little ambitious there, but he's well over value at 31 minutes. Rates-wise, 25.1% usage, 26% shot rate. He's making about 38% of his threes on volume, 174 attempts. The only player on the team with more attempts is Miles Kelly with 213. And he also has an assist rate of 23%. So not only is he a bucket getter and one of the better ones on the team, but he can also facilitate. And that's what makes Todd Pettiford very, very dangerous and why he's so good in this spot. And I'm willing to pay that 6.2 for him. I don't know how many people will, but that's just all the much better for me. As far as the last two DFS viable plays on the slate, Chad Baker-Mazara, who's very cheap himself at 6.3, and Janai Broome at 10.4. Broome's going to get ownership. How much ownership on this slate, we'll see. I think he's definitely going to be way less than Cooper Flagg was, maybe in the JT Toppin, area, maybe 30-35%. He's definitely not looking like himself lately. There's just so many, bangs, bruises, cuts, all this stuff at this point in the season. Everybody's banged up, but he's just been worn down, and that was very prevalent against Creighton. His offensive game really, really wasn't there, but we're talking about a guy who still managed to put up 30 despite the fact that he scored 8 real, because 3 stocks, 12 rebounds. It's his third time in the last 4 games having double-digit rebounds. He's very solid, but that's just such an expensive price, and Michigan guys are not going to be easy for him. Not only does he have to deal with Vlad Golden, who's going to be physical with him, but he's also going to have to deal with Danny Wolf, who's going to be running around all over the court. Is much more agile than you probably think for a 7-footer. So I'm worried about Broome. Number one, I think the Michigan guards will try to attack, try to get some into foul trouble. And I also think that Broome's going to get at least 1 offensive foul. I was talking to my man Varnicus before the show. You just know Wolf is, or one of those Michigan guards. They're just going to get under his skin, and he's going to get a charge. It's just going to happen at the most inopportune time, an early second foul or an early third foul. Like, I just see this with Janai Broome. And yes, I'm pitching the Broome fade in Maine. Might be an idiotic play. We'll see. But there's just been so much leverage to fading a super chalky Broome. And I almost feel like it might swing the other way, the pendulum, right? Where if he's going to be too low, like if he's going to be under 30%, then I start thinking about, well, shoot, now I have to roster Janai Broome, because if he's going to be under 40% owned on a 4-game slate with his upside, I got to have him. But as of now, I'm angling for the fade, and I'm going to be rostering, the Auburn values around him and Pettiford. As far as Chad Baker, I'm always worried with him. He was just scoring at will against Creighton. I don't know the extent of how sore he's going to be. I suspect he'll be fine injury-wise, but there's always that blow-up game looming for him. Admittedly, the 6.3 price is solid, but I just don't think Chad Baker-Mazara can ever be used in your single-entry stuff anymore. A large field GBP play? Certainly. Can he win you a GBP? Certainly. Can he ruin your lineup? Absolutely. So I just can't get there with him, even though the price is tasty. It's just a trust factor there for me. Would rather roster Pettiford, and that might end up looking idiotic by the end of the night, but that's just the line in the sand that I'm taking. And yes, if Donaldson goes off, would be versus former school. Revenge narrative. Who doesn't love a good revenge narrative, huh? I do. I know I do. Trey Donaldson, we'll see what he can do against Pettiford, maybe some added pep in his step. All right, last game on the slate here, Purdue versus Houston. This is the de facto hammer game. This is a total of 131.5. No surprise to anyone, the lowest total on the slate, and it's stayed steady since this matchup was known. 8.5-point spread there. I do love Houston minus 8.5. I have been a doubter of Purdue throughout the tournament, though, and it has bit me in the butt over and over. So once again, doubting Purdue. Haven't learned my lesson, I guess. Thought High Point had a solid chance to beat them. They beat them by double digits. Thought McNeese State could have a chance to beat them by double digits, but now they're playing a very good Houston team whose defense is as elite as ever, and LJ Cryer is suddenly playing like Curry reborn. Absolutely phenomenal performance by LJ Cryer against Gonzaga. And what's most interesting about that game, not only the fact that Cryer went nuts, and also Juwan Roberts, he just owned that Gonzaga front court with his post moves. But Milos Uzan was terrible offensively. He was timid offensively. He did have 8 assists, so he did his facilitator thing, but only 7 real points. 2 very important free throws late, of course. But it was a very bad game in 37 minutes. And he deferred to Roberts and Cryer, which is fine because they were hot. But at this game against Purdue, he is not going to, Houston's not going to have the luxury of him taking 6-7 shots, making 1, maybe 2 of them. He's going to have to be more offensively involved. I do foresee a double-double here with points and assists against Purdue. I really like Milos here. I think he's going to be under-owned because of that poor game. People will be going Cryer instead. I'm looking at the Houston stack all the way. Go to the Houston projections here. You can see Uzan at 6.7. We have him at damn near 4.6x at 36, 37 minutes. LJ Cryer also around that 37-minute mark puts him over 4x. I don't mind rostering both Milos and Cryer together. We should be able to afford it, especially if you're not paying for Broom. You can go with that more semi-balanced approach, kind of one of my calling cards, and fit those two in easily. GBP-wise, I like Manny Sharp at 5.3. I do think he is kind of out of the main team conversation right now just because of the volatility, but he definitely has upside. We know that. And then the front court options there, Juwan Roberts at 7K, Jojo Tugler at 6.1, and then your value pieces, Javier Frances at 4K, Milik Wilson at 5.1, and Terry Arsenault almost at min price at 3.4 because he hasn't been getting minutes in the tournament, but he looms. Tugler's interesting as a tournament play at 6.1. Going to block a bunch of shots, I suspect, on anyone that tries to bring it to the paint. But also foul trouble could be happening to him with Trey Kaufman-Renn, who's very good at the post moves of his own and getting the opposing big men into foul trouble. I do like Roberts at 7K. Fits in the mold of what I'm looking for. Does feel a bit like a chase after he put up the relatively strong game against Gonzaga in which he played 32 minutes. 18 and 5 with 2 steals. He put up a 40 there. Definitely interested. He's third in line for me behind Milos and Cryer, but a full-on Houston stack on this slate does feel right. So I could play all 3 and I could fit them, and I don't mind it. GBP-wise, I'm throwing some shares of Francis and Arsenault in. Arsenault played just 10 minutes against Gonzaga. This gets out of hand and Purdue just doesn't have it, and he plays like 22, 25 minutes at 3-4, good night. He's going to put up a huge score, and you will not win a tournament without him. He'll be low owned, I know, but whoever has him will just win by default. So we'll see. I was only able to put 14 minutes on him, but anything over 20 at this price, he could put up a pretty big number. But the game here, we want Houston stacks all over. Purdue-wise, I'm not targeting against Houston too often. This is a game that happens to be a semi-home, I guess, for Purdue, right? Houston got a bit of a tough draw here, having to play these games at, Lucas Oil Stadium, which, number one, stadiums are fine for the Final Four, kind of prefer basketball arenas for before that, but that is, and of course, the home of the Indianapolis Colts. So Purdue fans will probably be there in droves, but that's okay. I still trust Houston to get it done here, and I'm probably not rostering too much Purdue. We're still in a big enough slate at 4 games. We're not forced to target against Houston. We are soon going to be in those 2-game slates or 2-day slates even. And we'll have to probably take somebody against Houston, right? But I don't think we're there yet. The prices are up on Braden Smith and Trey Kaufman-Renn as well. And do you really want to trust Fletcher Lawyer, Caleb Furst, CJ Cox, those type of options against Houston? Probably not. Interesting part about Trey Kaufman-Renn, he's currently 8th on the KenPom Player of the Year rankings. Braden Smith fell off of those rankings. Trey Kaufman-Renn has been astonishing. His explosion this year has been phenomenal, but it really shouldn't surprise anyone. Coach Matt Painter, what does he do? He gets, he develops big men. Kaufman-Renn a little bit different than the ones he's been having, right? But man, TKR has just been really, really good. 15 rebounds against McNeese, a 50-piece. He's been up over 30 fantasy points in each of his last 7 games. He's just so good. This is going to be a real stiff test for him. He's not going to have that level of rebounding, 15. He's had 8 in the 9, 7, and 7 over the last 5. Might be able to get to 7 or 8 just because of the sheer amount of minutes he plays, but I don't think he's putting down a huge double-double in this one. And at 9-8, you really need that to pay off. So probably not going to be worth a look there in our main. Braden Smith at 9-4. We'll probably see pockets of ownership on him. He'll be lower than he has been, especially at this price of 9-4. And he's been solid, but he hasn't shot very well. High point, he put up a 36, but he could have definitely done better as he shot 6 of 19 from the field. And then he only took the 7 shots against McNeese because Trey Kaufman-Renn was doing so much damage. Miles Colvin was having a good game. He just kind of took that backseat role, which is great for leadership purposes. But for DFS, you definitely want to see him put up more 40s and 50s than 23s. So I don't hate the idea of using Braden Smith, but I think Houston's going to, obviously make life difficult for him. Fletcher Lawyer plays a lot better close to home. If you want to go with that narrative, he's only 4-8, but against Houston, he's going to have a lot of trouble getting some open enough looks to matter. He did have a big game against McNeese, but that is McNeese, not Houston, so I'm not going to be going there with Lawyer or anyone else for that matter. Miles Colvin is nearly min price. His minutes have been ramping up. He was pretty dang good against McNeese State, but I suspect his minutes will probably be more like low 20s for this one as opposed to mid 20s. And he's just not going to get a lot of clean looks once again against Houston. But they will not be focusing him when he's on the floor. So at least he has that going for him, I guess. But overall, I think Purdue they get smacked. I don't mean like a 20-point drubbing, but I do think Houston covers. And I think we're talking about a game that from start to finish, they're up by about 10-12. And this one just never really feels like Purdue has a chance. So that's kind of how I'm playing this one, which means very little Purdue exposure for me overall. All right, so that takes us to the end. Quick and easy. What do we want to do for a core here? Let me pull up. Let me get my other sheet loaded like we did yesterday. Okay. Share this tab instead. Okay. So this kind of just gives you this snapshot of the top sorted by expected value. To look at that while I do my EM ring on here. Core-wise for me right now, it's going to be Milos Uzen or LJ Cryer. Possibly just going to run them both, but I think one of those two has to be in your main lineup. Cohen Carr is the top value, and he will be popular. And then Todd Pettiford, which pretty much qualifies him as a Posh play or Nolan Hodge play, if you will. We'll update that for Nolan Hodge. But Pettiford, to me, just I think it's one of those situations where the genie has been let out of the bottle and he's not going back in. And it just would be very astonishing and dumbfounding if Pearl went back to using him like 15 minutes. This is a spot where he has to play a lot and he's going to be good. And it just does not make sense for him not to be. And possibly getting one of the hottest players left in the tournament at a reduced ownership because of that price increase makes it even better. Don't have him listed in the core there, Dre Davis, but he's also very high on my list. And as you can see, he projects very well. So this ultimately turns into a Auburn/Houston stack slate. And I'm perfectly happy with that with Michigan State values. I think that's a great way to build in Survivor if you're still in it. It's a great way to build in single entry, double ups, winner take all type of contests. You're just going to have a very safe floor, but you'll have upside for more as well. All right, so let's talk about some best bets here. I did mention that I like Tennessee to win outright and the under 144.5. I also like the Spartans minus 3.5. I like this Ole Miss team. I like Chris Beard, but just what I saw to the Spartans against New Mexico, I'm a true believer in Sparty this year. And you could do the whole like similarities between this team and the team that won the title. They had a Jason Richardson on that team. They've got a Jace Richardson on this team. They've, second round games in the same city. Like there's just a whole thing on socials there. I don't have it in front of me. But a lot of similarities between that team and this team. So if you are a fan of narratives or superstitions, like me, Spartans do look somewhat interesting. And as of yesterday, you could get them at 22-1. Let's see what that is now. Let's see here. To win it all. To reach the final and to win it all. It is, oh, okay, 28-1. So 28-1 to win the Natty, 9-1 to reach the final, and then to reach the Final Four, what is it? To plus 250. So I did release a short on all socials about Michigan State being the most dangerous non-1 seed left, and the FTN model gives them a pretty damn good chance of not only making the Elite Eight, but the Final Four as well. 27.1% or 27.7% chance, excuse me, which is definitely solid. Probably sprinkle a little bit more on the Spartans there. Do have a future on them, but I kind of want to get more involved with Spartans, and I feel very good about them. All right, let's see. We got lots of player props for tomorrow as well, but the other one for me is Houston minus 8.5. Not betting the Auburn game either, especially with that line going down a little bit. I'm just uncomfortable with Auburn. I think the right side would be to bet Michigan, but I feel like it'd be one of those like situations what happened with Creighton. It'll be close, and then Auburn's going to get free throws. Michigan's going to miss a shot. Auburn's going to get free throws. Michigan's going to miss a shot. And suddenly that lead's going to swell to like 11 or 12. So I just don't feel great about betting that one. But I do think Auburn wins, but not going to be betting this game. So Houston minus 8.5. Tennessee outright under 144.5, and then Michigan State minus 3.5. And the NIT bet of all NIT bets, which you can get at Will Hill currently, plus 450 for the Mocs, our Chattanooga Mocs to win the NIT. Their backs were against the wall against Bradley, and they found a way to win with Trey Bonham. Really fun team. I love this Mock squad. I like become enamored with them in their NIT run, and I really want them to finish the deal. We will have crown coverage as well beginning on Monday. There will be a 3-game set, I believe, and then on Tuesday they have 5 or 6 games plus the NIT semifinals. So we might get a huge slate on Tuesday, fingers crossed, like potentially 6, 7, 8 games, which would be awesome. But be ready for that because there are player props for all of that as well. Speaking of player props, let's pull up FanDuel. I don't like how DraftKings is doing player props right now for college. I don't know about you guys, but the whole taking away unders thing is really annoying. Not a big fan of that. All right, let's see what we got here. Let's see. So Pettiford at 11.5 minus 125 on FanDuel. We have them projected for 14, but that's at 31 minutes. If those minutes drop, obviously that could get relatively ugly fast. At 25 minutes, I have him at about 11.5. So he needs those minutes to get there, but I think he does, and he's going to be racking up those free throws late. So that is one of my favorite props on the board for sure, is Todd Pettiford over 11.5 points. Be hitting that at the various books and Prize Picks and Underdog, depending on what they offer there. But that's just way too advantageous there. Also, kind of like Chaney Johnson, over 7.5 points at -114. I do think he'll be a bigger factor here, playing 25-ish minutes. So that is going to be a spot that I'm pretty intrigued by. Do like Miles Kelly under 12.5 points at -125. Just he could get hot and ruin that one, but I don't feel really great or positive about him at the moment. And then on the Purdue-Houston game, I have already hit it. Fletcher Lawyer under 11.5 points. He is another one that can get hot and hit threes. It's -128 over on FanDuel, but I just do not see him having any success against this Houston defense whatsoever. Would be very shocked, in fact. Player combos, there are a few interesting ones. This one being Milos Uzan, points plus assists on FanDuel. 17.5 is what they've set it at there. The over is -111. I do like Uzan to score 10 to 11 real points minimum, and then knock back, 5 to 7 assists. So over 17.5 points plus assists. I'm all over. The Pettiford point prop is my favorite, but then my second one, in addition to the combo prop there on Uzan, is his assist in general. The odds, what is it? It's -158 now for 4.5 assists. He's going to hit over. We had that the other day as well. Not great, but I did get it earlier. Let me just pull up Discord here, the tracker, because we got way better odds on that one earlier. Now that we're about to close in on game time, of course, that's not quite as good. But let me just remember. It was on Caesars. 4.5 over 4.5 assists at -110. So still better odds on Caesars to hit that one, but that is easily one of my top 3 props of the day, next to the Todd Pettiford over 11.5 points. So those are the two we're going to be all over, and should have some pretty solid success with that. That'll take us to the end. I appreciate you guys' continued support. We will be back tomorrow night. Same thing. If the games run a little bit long, we'll go on after those end. But we'll be breaking down the Elite Eight in full, and specifically the slate for Saturday. But we will break down all of those games. It'll probably just be the Friday show. Not sure we'll have a Saturday one, but I will be back Sunday night to break down the Crown Tournament on a free show. So I'm excited about that one. And if you guys are a DGen similar to me, I know you guys will be grinding that Fox Tournament, the Crown, as well. On the way out the door, please make sure you guys hit the like button. Those have been a tremendous help, all the interactions as well. You guys are awesome. Community has been great, and I'm very proud of what we've been able to build together. Let's keep it going. Few more slates left. Had the old bankroll. Green screens and window trips. Let's get it. Don't forget, go Huskies.